So Will just brought up Russia. I just don't see the U.S. going to war against Russia. Nuclear powers, too much to lose. But that doesn't mean that the U.S. won't support groups that Russia is fighting, or that the Russians will support groups that the U.S. is fighting, or our groups will fight their groups in what we'll call proxy wars, right? You don't send the kings against each other. You send the pawns against each other. And that's, I think, what's going to happen in the future. So just a little bit about schedule. How many of you are juniors? We have juniors in here. We know what you'll be doing tomorrow. You are not a junior, Will.
How do you know?
I know. So you juniors, go kick butt on the ACT. Good luck. Have fun with it. And then that's tomorrow. So we will not have class tomorrow. And then Wednesday, how many of you are juniors? You're still not a junior, Will. You're taking the work keys on that day. We might have class that day. I don't know. They say it's a regular what? Oh, we don't have class. Oh, never mind.
Wait, what?
Wait, what?
We have class on
We do not have Will and conflict.
We don't have class on.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Okay. And then Thursday, it's back to normal. That will primarily be a work day because of something you're going to find out in class today. Everyone understand schedule?
I hurt myself
today.
That's not the right slide.
To
see if I still feel. I focus on the pain. The only thing.
Okay.
Real.
Let's talk about the Second Persian Gulf War. This is the 2003 American invasion of Iraq itself. We've already talked about why the U.S. did it. Mainly it was because of what the Americans claimed were Iraqi violations of the peace agreement that prevented the U.S. from invading in 1991. Also, other things are going on, sort of a domino theory, the American belief that if we establish democracy in Iraq, neighboring Middle East countries, et cetera. Let's look at the war itself. So this war, as is usually the case in recent wars, is sort of three phases. Air war, ground war, aftermath. So just some visuals for you. The 2003 American invasion of Iraq was the first war where GPS was used to great effect. Global positioning, all of you now have more technology in your phones than existed in the 1991 attack. This is 2003. You are looking at Baghdad and the targeting of the Iraqi headquarters, trying to get Saddam Hussein. Didn't get him there. Took out Iraq's ability to detect any aircraft, American aircraft. They had no idea where the American military was flying. They had no ability to communicate to generals in the field. Saddam Hussein is there in Baghdad. He has no ability to communicate to his generals that are out there in Iraq, a country about the size of Texas. He doesn't know where they are. They don't know where he is. They don't even know if he's alive. Very effectively cut off Iraqis' communication with each other. You're looking at Iraq itself. Here's Kuwait. The American military is in purple. You'll notice that there's this drive into Iraq, into Baghdad. But there's also this northern slanty, purpley, whitey thingy going on. And that is because of the American decision to airdrop highly qualified badmouth foes into northern Iraq. And this is because of a decision that the American military made. Let's go back to the 1991 American war against Iraq. Does anyone remember the rules, the ground rules? How did the U.S. operate? It was called the Powell Doctrine. What was that thing? I'll start it, you finish it. Hey, they all got their knives out. What do I get out? My Uzi. They all point knives at me, and I Indiana Jones them. If any of you get that reference, I'm impressed that you watched that movie. They yank out their knives, you shoot them. Overwhelming force. You need 100,000 soldiers, so you bring 500,000 soldiers. You make it so they have no chance, and they know they have no chance. That was 1991. This was 2003. The U.S. decided to operate on a slightly different level here. We did not bring 500,000 soldiers, about 150,000. That's far less, is it not?
2 million.
Highly trained. We're talking about the best of the best American soldiers. Highly trained. Airdrop them into the third. Who lives up here?
Kurds.
Very good. Land them there. Have the Americans train and organize a Kurdish military. Invade the southern third. Who lives down here?
Arab.
The Shiites. Very good. Also, a group of people motivated to see Iraq lose. Have the Americans go in there, train the Shiites. Have the Americans land here, train the Kurds, and have the Iraqi people overthrow Saddam Hussein with a little bit of American help. That's different. Why are you on your phone? That's different from the first Persian Gulf War where Americans would do the fighting. This time, at least the plan was some Americans, but Iraqis do the fighting. Okay? I am now showing you, there's Iraq. Why is this country highlighted? What country is that?
Germany.
Very good. That's Germany. The largest American air base outside of the U.S. is in Germany. American planes would fly from Germany to Iraq, bomb Iraq, and then fly back.
They just use aircraft carriers.
Certainly you could use aircraft carriers. However, aircraft carriers do not have, they certainly have big planes, but not planes that are quite big enough for the sustained bombing that was done. I'm going to stand about where Missouri is, according to this map. Missouri. It's in the middle of the U.S. It's like dead center U.S. There were planes in Missouri, big planes, that flew from Missouri to Iraq, bombed Iraq, and then flew back to Missouri, reloaded, flew to Iraq, bombed Iraq, and then flew back to Missouri. That's a long flight. It takes hours. You will notice that between Germany and Iraq, there's this country. That country is Turkey. Very good. Turkey. Turkey is a Middle Eastern country. Turkey has an ally in the U.S. We are allies with Turkey. But Turkey wasn't crazy about the decision to help the Kurds. They didn't like that very much, and I'm wondering if any of you can figure out why.
The Kurds live in Turkey too.
What?
The Kurds live in Turkey too.
Very good. Remember, there is no Kurdistan. The Kurds are a minority in several different countries. The Kurds live in this region here, including Turkey. If the U.S. helps the Kurds overthrow Iraq, then the Kurds in Turkey will say, our brothers in Iraq are free. Why can't we be free? Let's overthrow the Turkish government. We were friends with two people that weren't friends with each other. We were friends with the Kurds. We were friends with the Turk, but the Turks and the Kurds were not friends with each other. And so the U.S. Air Force has to ask permission of every country it flies over. Hey, do we have permission to violate your airspace? Yeah, go ahead. Hey, do we have permission to violate? Yeah. Hey, Turkey, do we have permission to violate your airspace and fly over you so we could bomb Iraq? And the answer was no. You cannot fly over our airspace. So these planes had to fly around Turkey to get to Iraq. So that the Turkish could say to Iraq, hey, we didn't help the Americans. Don't be mad at us.
Why did they choose Germany over any other European country?
Just happens to be the spot where the largest American Air Force base is in Europe. This is a World War II in essence question. During the Cold War, Germany was the most hospitable, welcoming of American military force, mainly because they really didn't have a choice, right? You're Germany. We beat you in World War II. You want Americans in your country now, don't you? Uh-huh. Thanks, right? I mean, they didn't really have a choice, okay? Any questions here? Following up on that question, an article in today's paper suggests that one of the things that President Trump is supporting is the idea that any country that hosts American soldiers today has to pay more for them. You have to pay for our soldiers to be in your country. After World War II, it was in America's interest that Germany not rearm itself. And so when we beat Germany, we said, hey, Germany, we'll put soldiers in your country. Don't worry about it. We didn't want Germany to rearm. And other areas, Japan. We are now at the point where, at least if Trump gets his way, we are now going to say to Germany, if you don't start paying for us, you can defend yourself, which is, we didn't want that 50 years ago. We don't want Germany to defend itself. Bad things happen when Germany defends itself. But we seem to be at a point where, at least if Trump gets his way, Germany will start paying for its own military defense. Japan will start paying for its own military defense. And those American soldiers can not defend Germany. Germany can defend Germany. Anyway, let's keep going. Part 2 is the ground war. So bomb the snot out of Iraq. Part 2. Physically invade Iraq. Actually invade. So again, you can see the northern third. That's where American soldiers were airdropped. We're going to train the Kurds. We're going to lead the Kurds in a rebellion of the Iraqi military. You can see 2 major lines here. One of them is the American. I don't remember which one. Who cares?
Wait.
The other one's the British.
Kurdistan?
Test question. Name the one other nation that helped us during the second Persian Gulf War, Britain. In the first Persian Gulf War, everybody. They lined up. Can we help? During the second Persian Gulf War, Britain. I think Poland gave us like 10 people. Other than that, no one was interested.
Yeah, Poland.
The reason is this wasn't a popular war. Unlike the first Persian Gulf War, where the U.S. enjoyed widespread support, the belief was that the reasons you went to war, right? Remember, let's go back to the causes of the war. You're not letting us see if you have nuclear weapons or not. But that doesn't mean they have them, right? You're going to war because they won't let you check, but that doesn't mean they have them. It just means they're not cooperating with you, but that doesn't mean they have them. And in hindsight, we know they didn't have them. The second one was to punish them for 9/11. Well, we now know they had nothing to do with 9/11. Get rid of a dictator. What about all the other dictators? Right? That these nations kind of took down our reasoning one by one. Said, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Okay? It was not a popular war. Anyway, the one country that did help was Britain. Other thing I'll explain on this one is this triangle here. Who lives in the northern third of Iraq? Kurds. Who lives in the southern third? Shiites. The middle third.
Why does it say Kurdistan?
It's in a dream world. Okay, the middle third is a group called the Sunnis. That's who rules Iraq, the Sunnis. You are looking at the area where the greatest resistance to American invasion occurred. It's called the Sunni Triangle. This is the hornet's nest. This is where this group called ISIS was created, right there. You're looking at the birthplace of ISIS. This is where the fiercest resistance happened in the American invasion of Iraq in 2003. You're looking at, by the thousands, Iraqi regular army soldiers surrendering. My classmate was in this war, and he said that he would show up in an Iraqi village, just him, and maybe one other American, and here come the Iraqi soldiers by the hundreds, ready to surrender to the Americans. They had no interest. They knew they were going to lose. These are not these people. They're the other people. Not interested in fighting. They're not going to die. And surrender they did, which is leading to a problem. And I'm wondering if any of you see it yet. I'm telling you that, very good. I'm telling you that the Iraqis surrendered by the thousands. And then Will just said it. What's the problem?
Prisoners of war.
Yeah. What are you going to do with all these prisoners of war? What are you going to do with them? You have a force of about 150,000 Americans. That's not, you can't control a country with 150,000 soldiers. The problem was not winning the war. That was easy. The problem was, now what? How do we run a country with 150,000 soldiers? Big problem. Okay. This is called the highway of death. So I'm going to go back. As the Americans are invading, the Iraqis are running, absolutely fleeing. And the Americans knew where they were fleeing, got ahead of them, just waited with aircraft and just bombed the snot out of the Iraqi military. Just wasted their military. And they had no way of effectively resisting the American onslaught. And it was an onslaught. It was a serious butt kicking. The tough group were called the Republican Guard. The Republican Guard. They're tough. They were the elite Iraqi military, mainly from this area right here. They'd be the Marines of the Iraqi military, right? They'd be the Rangers. Okay, everything okay over there? Having fun with your Uno cards, are you? There you go. One thing that I forgot. In May of 2003, the President of the United States said the war is over. I want you to hear that date again. May of 2003, the United States declared the war over. Just to give you some perspective, it is now March 11th, 2019. That's 16 years later. Did you know 16 years ago this war ended? And if you're thinking that doesn't sound right, it's because just because you say something, that doesn't make it so. This war is not over. In fact, the tough part's about to begin. Now, before I continue, I want to remind us of the American Civil War. I know I've said this, but I'm going to say it again. When the Union defeated the Confederacy, that was the easy part. War was over, right? 1865, the Union defeated the Confederacy. And that's when the trouble started. Why? The KKK, right? The underground resistance, which lasted about 100 years. Another 100 years. Even though the war was over, the war wasn't over. A different phase of the war. This is very, very normal. This is what made, by the way, the end of World War II amazing. That after World War II was over, that there wasn't this underground German resistance. There wasn't this underground Japanese resistance. And what lessons should we have applied? How did we effectively end World War II without there being that underground resistance? And the lesson, by the way, is massive American military occupation. We didn't leave Germany after World War II was over. We stayed there another 50 years. We didn't leave Japan after World War II was over. We militarily occupied it. We made sure there was no underground resistance, which didn't happen here. And what we're going to try and do is figure out, well, why? Why did it happen here when it didn't happen after World War II? Okay. So we're now looking at part 3, right? The Iraqis have surrendered. War's over. Now what? the difficult part, post-combat. Anyone know what we're looking at? Is there a sale at pub?
Refugees.
Looting is the answer. What you do not see in this picture, it's beyond your line of sight, is the store that these people walked in, took everything, and are walking out. Ovens, refrigerators, sometimes cash, computers. Who's there to stop them? There is no Iraqi military anymore. They're gone. The Iraqi military was dismissed. By the way, by order of the United States. The United States said, no more Iraqi military. If you're a member of the Iraqi military, go home. Did you notice what I didn't say? What I didn't say was, by the way, leave your gun with us. Just go home. You now have an unemployed Iraqi soldier with a gun. An unemployed Iraqi soldier with a gun. Anyone see trouble ahead? You should. Okay. Who's to stop the looting? The Americans? There's not enough of you. There are 150,000 covering the state of Texas. It doesn't add up. You can't do it. So problem number one, looting. Try and figure out what's going on here. So look at the top slide, then look at the bottom slide. The top slide, we've got something that says before the war. And we have somebody that looks like Uncle Sam saying, there are weapons of mass destruction, as he's looking through this giant telescope. Then, after the war, we've got the same Uncle Sam looking through a microscope now saying, well, says this, whoever this guy is, and I'll tell you who that's supposed to represent. Anyone understand? What's going on here? Where are they? So problem number one is looting. Problem number two is, okay, you went to war to find the weapons of mass destruction. Where are they? Where are they? U.S. military spent a lot of time trying to find what simply wasn't there. There were no weapons of mass destruction. There used to be a chemical weapons plant, but it had been taken apart after the Iraqis promised not to use them anymore. Right? If the cops tell you to put the gun down and you do, does the gun disappear after you put it down? It's still there, right? The cops come, there's a gun. You had a gun. Well, yeah, you told me to put it down. There it is. I put it down. Let's go back to 1991. Hey, Iraq, you better let us find any evidence of weapons of mass destruction. And Iraq said, okay. But they stopped manufacturing this stuff. But the labs are still there. They didn't disappear. Okay, but no active weapons of mass destruction. When I say weapons of mass destruction, I'm talking about nuclear, chemical, biological. So problem number two, where are they? Where are they? The U.S. military is trying to find it. Problem number three, you remove the old government, right? The U.S. removed the old government. Anyone see a problem? Your parents are bad parents, so the cops come and remove your parents. Yeah, where's my new mommy? Where's my new daddy? Right? The Americans removed the old government without putting up a new government. Let's go back to World War II. The Germans, Nazi government, removed. The Japanese imperial government, removed. But did the Americans leave Germany and Japan? Nope. Stayed there, rewrote the Japanese Constitution. You want to know why Japanese women have the rights that they do? It's because the Americans wrote the Japanese Constitution. No, we'll write it. Women shall have rights. There, Japan. There's your new Constitution. You like it, don't you? Yes, said the Japanese. We sure do. Same thing in Germany. But that did not happen in Iraq. You are looking at three women who get to do something that they had never before got to do. Put purple ink on their fingers.
Vote.
They voted. Right? So problem number three is the establishing of a new government in Iraq. Not easy. Okay. So I have here summarizing. Looting, weapons of mass destruction. And then problem number 3, how's this new government going to look? Now I need to go back here. I apologize if I'm talking a lot, but there's a lot to say here. Let's look at this map. Kurds live up here. Sunnis live in the middle third. Shiites live in the bottom third. Saddam Hussein was Sunni. Sunnis make up about 10% of the Iraqi population. They're the elite. They're the few. The mass majority of Iraqis are Shiite. Well, if you're going to establish a democratic government, guess who's going to now enjoy power?
Shiite.
The Shiites. Is it possible that the Shiites will use their new political power and exact revenge on their hated Sunnis? No. Probably, right? That's possibly what's going to happen here. Okay. Questions here. I got one more slide here, and then we're going to shift gears. You are looking at the moment Saddam Hussein was found. Saddam Hussein fled when it was obvious that the U.S. was going to win. He disappeared. He went underground. And I mean, he literally went underground. He was in hiding. Disappeared. A small American force walking through a field. A soldier was walking in a field, and notice that as he stepped, he was stepping on something that went clank, right? You're stepping in mud, stepping on clank. And he thought, that's weird. Went back, removed it, and that guy's face came out of it. I'm Saddam Hussein. Right? Now he doesn't, I mean, he kind of looks like Saddam Hussein, but they didn't know for sure. One of the people in this group of American soldiers graduated from this school. Jake Bell. Graduated probably 2003. Graduated from this school. Pretty good wrestler. Anyway, he was part of this group that found Saddam Hussein. I'd love for Jake to come and talk to you, but right now, I think he's in Turkey. He is a bad mofo. You should see his beard. He blends into the population. I mean, this guy does special ops, right? I asked his dad where Jake was. I saw his dad during homecoming. So what's Jake up to? And he said to me with a straight face, I could tell you, but then I'd have to shoot you. Like, all right, well, how's your wife doing? So what are we going to do with this guy? The Americans found him. What are you going to do with him? You could just execute him. You could put him on trial. You could turn him over to the new Iraqi government. Remember now, he's Sunni. They're Shiite. They're going to rip him up. So the question of what are we going to do with this guy now that the Americans have him? That's another question to deal with. So we got looting. We got weapons of mass destruction. We got to find them. We have the establishing of a new government. How's that going to go? And then what do we do with this guy? Now, again, let's go back to World War II. What did we do with the high-ranking Nazis? What did we do with the high-ranking Japanese?
Put him on trial.
Put him on trial. Now, let me ask this. Those of you who know, who put him on trial? You're close. So Ethan said the UN put him on trial. That's very close. The world put the Nazis on trial. Not the German people, the world did. The world put the Japanese on trial. Not the Japanese people, the world did. It could have happened here. The world could have put him on trial. But the problem was the Americans weren't sure about that. I mean, the world wasn't sure that Iraq had done anything illegal. I mean, you never found the weapons of mass destruction, so he's not guilty of that. What's he guilty of? Being a dictator? That's not what you're put on trial for. So the U.S. wasn't sure about this whole world thing. Okay? Just a whittle more, and then I'm done. This is it. Last slide. That is Donald Rumsfeld. Donald Rumsfeld was the guy in charge of the American military effort in 2003. In 1991, the Americans used the Powell Doctrine, overwhelming force. 12 years later, the American military invaded using the Rumsfeld Doctrine, which is the opposite of the Powell Doctrine. Not a large force with overwhelming military power, a small force, quick. Land, train, lead. Small force. Very effective at winning the war, not so effective at keeping control of Iraq. So keep that in mind. Also, something up here called the Bush Doctrine. Bush's father was the guy that led the Americans in 1991. His son led the Americans during the 2003 invasion. The Bush Doctrine was two things. Number one, if I think you might attack me, I'll attack you first. If I think you might attack me, I'll attack you first. And number two, if there's a terrorist group inside your country, you are that terrorist group. You are that terrorist group. Okay, this will matter later on. Wow, we covered a lot. But the reason is I won't see you tomorrow. We don't have class Wednesday. And I want Thursday to be kind of a work day because of something that I'm going to tell you later. Any questions? Yes.
Is the KKK considered a terrorist group?
Absolutely.
Then does that make us fire?
Oh, someone who recognized the irony of Bush claim number 2. According to the Bush Doctrine, isn't the United States a terrorist country because the KKK exists? Do you know the FBI just came out with a report yesterday? There were more examples of white supremacist terrorism since 2017 than Islamic-based terrorism in the U.S. You want to look at a typical terrorist? Follow these criteria. Is the guy white? And is he male? Terrorist.
All right, Mr. Potter.
According to statistics. Right? Now, can we find them in this room? Uh-huh. There you are. Bunch of terrorists. Okay. Any questions? That's it. You got about 10 minutes. I did not, and that's on tape now, so I'll have to do some doctoring. Dang it.